You're walking into a room where every decision made by Ottawa in recent days feels like a chess move on the global stage. Canada just dropped a surprise decision to scrap its planned 3% digital services tax targeting American tech giants like Amazon, Google, Meta, and Apple. A tax that was going to apply retroactively to 2022 revenues. And it happened mere hours before it would have taken effect. Why the dramatic reversal? Prime Minister needed to hit the reset button with Washington after President Trump called the digital services tax a direct and blatant attack on U.S. companies. Overnight, Canada cancelled the levy and resumed stalled trade negotiations, avoiding the threat of U.S. tariffs on Canadian exports. But while the world was glued to the drama of tech taxes and high-stakes diplomacy, Canada quietly achieved another milestone of equal impact. It loaded its first liquefied natural gas, LNG, export destined for Asia. These moves, a digital tax repeal and a pivot into clean energy exports, are more than headlines. They signal a deeper recalibration of Canada's role as a trusted trading partner, energy powerhouse, and geopolitical actor in a changing world. So what does this maneuver really mean? Why did Canada fold on the tech tax, only to flex its energy muscles behind the scenes? And how do these moves reshuffle global trade, diplomacy, and energy strategy in unpredictable ways? Stick around, because today we are unpacking the interconnected strategy behind Canada's twin moves and why you should care, whether you invested in energy markets, tech regulation, or the future of North American trade. It all starts with the digital services tax. This 3% levy was poised to hit revenues of major U.S. tech firms dating from 2022 forward, a retroactive charge that went far beyond mere symbol. It would have applied to trillions in cumulative revenue generated from Canadian users. Prime Minister's intention was to signal that Canada, like several European peers, was getting serious about tech regulation and digital revenue fairness. But a new administration in D.C. saw it differently. President Trump called it a blatant attack, and the optics weighed heavily at a time when trade negotiations on steel, aluminum, autos, were already on shaky footing. The threat of U.S. retaliation was real, with Washington threatening tariffs worth billions of dollars. So Canada made the call. The 3% tax was withdrawn at the last minute. Ottawa issued a formal statement. The tax would not proceed, discussion channels were open again, and U.S. officials responded by agreeing to re-engage and back away from tariff threats. Canada had performed a rapid diplomatic retreat, but it wasn't a sign of weakness. It was strategic pause. Because at the same time, in the port of Kitimat, BC, Canada achieved a historic energy milestone, its first load of LNG destined for Asia. That first cargo, aboard the Gaslog Glasgow on June 30th, marked the culmination of a $40 billion investment and 5 years of construction. Canada now has an operational LNG export terminal, capable of loading liquefied natural gas cooled to minus 162 degrees Celsius, shrinking to 1/600th its volume for efficient ocean transport. The implications are huge. Prior to this, Canada exported about 8.8 billion cubic feet of gas daily into the US via pipelines, earning around $8 billion annually. Now, with a 6.5 million tons per annum, MTPA, export capacity, rising to 14 MTPA by 2026, Canada is looking at another estimated $8 billion per year in revenue through Pacific exports, plus added margins from shorter, cost-efficient shipping routes to Asia. What this means geopolitically is even bigger. Kitimat's location on Canada's Pacific coast bypasses American pipeline infrastructure, the Panama Canal, and Gulf route complications. It reduces transit times to China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan by several days, not to mention cutting shipping and insurance costs. And the timing couldn't be better. Asia's hunger for cleaner burning fuels like natural gas is surging, as coal usage comes under pressure from climate concerns and air quality regulations. Canada is not just exporting energy, it's exporting a message of reliability, geopolitical neutrality, and strategic diversification. This dual strategy, appease Washington on tech and assert independence in energy, represents a bold recalibration of Canadian sovereignty. Ottawa didn't just bend to political pressure. They used that moment to position Canada as a partner capable of pivoting quickly and strategically speaking in different global languages. Give on one front, stand firm on another. But these moves have immediate economic ripple effects. For U.S. energy markets, Canada's LNG export option offers buyers more competition in Asia, which could affect global LNG pricing and slow energy demand growth for U.S. Gulf exports. It could also reshape U.S. Canada negotiations around energy trade and regulatory alignment. For Canada, the benefits are manifold. First, the energy sector gains a new revenue pulse, boosting GDP, federal and provincial budgets, and creating thousands of indirect jobs in maritime services, equipment, and upstream production. The LNG Canada terminal employed about 9,000 workers at peak and channeled $5.8 billion Canadian dollars into British Columbia-based contracts, including $500 million in First Nations partnerships, supporting local economies and long-term inclusion. Second, diversifying export channels makes Canada less vulnerable to potential U.S. political maneuvers, like pipeline restrictions, carbon border adjustments, or shifts in tax policy. Third, it positions Canada to ride the wave of clean energy demand growth projected by LNG experts like Shell, which foresees a 60% increase in global LNG demand by 2040. If Canada adds a second expansion train, rising to 26 MTPA by 2028, it could become the world's 8th largest LNG exporter, a geopolitical milestone comparable to what minerals once meant. Back to the tech tax repeal. Critics have accused scorning his own progressive vision, bowing to American pressure. But defenders point out that Canada mitigated significant economic risk. Steel and aluminum tariffs already cost billions, and autos were next. In fact, the tech tax repeal may have unlocked new rounds of discussion with the U.S., adding goodwill to broader trade dialogues. The decision shows realpolitik in action. Internal ambition balanced against external leverage. What's happening next? Watch for how Canada leverages its LNG platform to negotiate not just export contracts, but trade terms, energy for steel deals, supply for tariff packages, climate policy cross-linkages. Also, keep tabs on the second LNG train scheduled later this year, and final investment decisions on expansion next year. The scale-up will determine how much clout Canada holds in energy diplomacy. At the same time, emerging LNG competitors, from U.S. Gulf terminals to Qatar, are watching closely. Canada's advantage: less political friction with Asia-Pacific partners, plus faster eastbound shipping. That could undercut U.S. suppliers or carve a niche for Canada as the clean and geopolitical safe option, particularly if global energy transition picks up steam. From a consumer standpoint, this could mean more stable LNG prices in Asia, slightly less upward energy pressure in North America, and potentially cleaner fuel blends. For Canada, however, there will be pressure to ensure emissions are managed, Indigenous rights upheld, and that gas exports align with climate commitments. Meanwhile, watch how the tech tax saga unfolds in the US and Europe. Will pressure from Canada and its exports lead other nations to reconsider retroactive taxes? Or will Canada's concessions signal to other middle powers that regulatory ambition must align with geopolitical cost? Here's the bigger picture. In one move, Canada avoided a tech tariff war and in another, established itself as a Pacific energy player. That's not simple diplomacy, that's strategic emergence. It tells foreign governments and investors, this is a country that can serve both old transatlantic agreements and new trans-Pacific ambitions. Now, what do we want from you? Was Canada right to back down on the digital tax to save trade talks? Or should Ottawa have risked American anger in the name of asserting sovereignty over digital economy policy? And how important is Canada's LNG export breakthrough in the wider climate and geopolitical story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you see Canada's LNG pivot as a game changer in energy geopolitics? Will repealing the digital tax help or hurt Canada's global credibility? We are listening, and we want your take. If this video helped you connect the dots between global policy, trade strategy, and energy transition, please hit that like button. Tap subscribe to join our global analysis community, and don't forget the bell icon to get notified when we drop another deep dive. We rely on your support, your likes, comments, and shares help us bring more content like this. Thank you for being here. Check out the video on your screen now. About US wheat rejected worldwide. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.